Len Haggerty here with MOVE.TRAIN.JrGOLF, and I wanted to touch base with you guys today, just talking a little bit about the hip and golf. You know, here in New England, our season is kind of winding down, but last week we had a beautiful day, much like today, where I was out at the course and kind of coming in for my round, I had a conversation with another golfer who was waiting for a cart to become available, just saying he simply couldn't walk the course because he had a bad hip, and that kind of started to make me think a little bit more just about the role of the hip in the golf swing and what have you. And so you have to understand that in golf there's a lot of wear and tear on the hip. Now there certainly is in any sport, in anything we do. However, there's 3 or 4 basic movements that the hip goes through when we're swinging a golf club. One is that there is anterior and posterior pelvic tilt. That is when we're here in our golf swing, our hips come in and out. Mainly it's as through our follow through and at impact, we have this pelvic tilt that occurs. We also have a basic pelvic rotation, which is what helps separate the trunk from the pelvis and the lower body. But we also have an internal and external rotation of the hip or the femur in its capsule area. So if I'm on my backswing, I have internal rotation into this hip, right? External rotation on my downswing from this hip, and then I go into internal rotation here in my lead hip, so on and so forth. And so with those movements occurring all the time, and there can be a lot of wear and tear or micro trauma. And so some things that typically might challenge a golfer with any pre-existing conditions most often would be like a degeneration issue, but often from that motion that occurs at the hips and pelvis during a golf swing, overuse, improper mechanics, they can all lead to potential tendonitis, bursitis in the hip, and some other things, muscle strains, and what have you. So one thing that we kind of look for in the hip is to make sure that we have a mobile hip and that the muscles that attach in and about the hip are strong and that they have some flexibility. So with those kind of in mind, we can reduce the potential risks of continuing with an injury that may be pre-existing, or we can also eliminate the potential risk of an injury elsewhere. If you think of our body as a one big defense mechanism, if our hips are restricted, then it's going to be other things that occur in the golf swing to try to compensate for that. And so therefore, you might end up with a sway or a reverse spine angle or coming over the top, all because we're just tightening our hips. And so what I want to show you here, just a couple different basic hip mobility exercises that you can do almost anywhere, whether it's yes, at the gym or at your home, that you don't need any equipment for. So let's get into it, and I'll just show you some basic things that you can do. So this first exercise that I'm going to show you is what we call 90-90 hips. And so basically you can do this, as you can see, I'm kind of here at the park and fields. You can do it on the ground. You can do it at the stretching mat at the gym. You can even just do it on your bed. It's that simple of a thing to do. As you can see, I'm sitting here kind of in a relaxed position. My arms are back behind my hips. I have one leg is kind of laying flat on the ground on the outside. My knee is bent at 90. My other leg, on the inside of my thigh and knee, is basically right next to my heel of the opposing leg. So again, with my hands kind of back behind my hips for stability, I want to think about driving my heels into the ground. And what I'm going to do from here is I want to keep upper body stable, and I want to press my heels down and rotate my hips over. Pause and come back. Over and back. Okay, now maybe you can't get, once you start from the ground and you come over, maybe you're not going to be able to get all the way over, but that's okay. We're just starting here, all right? And coming back over, but you just get as far as you can, okay? So again, let's say that that's not a problem and you're like flying around here. Well, great. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to eliminate the hands. And so now you're here, and you're going to still continue to drive the heels into the ground, over, and back, over, and back. There you have it. All right, so that's hip mobility number 1 that I'm showing you, 90-90 hip drill. Okay, so this next hip mobility drill I'm going to show you incorporates a little bit of a hamstring flexibility aspect to it as well. Because if you think about it, when we're in our golf stance, right, we're here, we have a hip hinge, right? So we're here, we're lining up. Let's say I'm using a mid-iron 6-7. I have my hip hinge, right? So I'm here, right? I have and a lengthening of my hamstring. So we want to have a stretch, because then as we go through, I'm internally rotating into that back leg, externally rotating from the front. As I come through, it's the same thing, externally rotating from my trail leg and internally rotating into my extended lead leg. And so what this drill does is that you just need something that you can prop one foot up on, okay? If you have limited hamstring flexibility, use something that's lower. If you have really good hamstring flexibility, you can place it on something that's higher, okay? You need to be the judge of that for this hip mobility drill. So for the sake of this, I'm going to show you here in this position, all right? So I've just extended my leg up onto a elevated surface. My toes are pointed back towards my knee, okay? Put my hands on my hips. The other thing that this is going to incorporate is a little bit of balance in your stance leg. If that is a challenge, you can still do this, but you would just want to use some type of dowel rod or something to brace yourself so that that isn't a limiting factor for you to perform the exercise as a whole. So with my hands on my hips, what I'm going to do here is an internal rotation. Here, I'm going to rotate my trunk as far as I can over my lead leg. Or in this position, if I'm a righty golfer, it's going to be my trailing leg. I rotate as far as I can go, come back to neutral, and I'm going to even rotate out as for external rotation. And I'm going to repeat this. Maybe 3 times to each side. Okay. 1 and 3. Good. And then I'm just going to switch. Place that other leg up on the surface. All my feet are pointing straight ahead. Toes are pointing back of the action leg. Okay. I'm going to internally rotate as far as I can. Pause. Back to neutral. Continue externally rotating from this lead leg as far as I can. Pause. And again, repeat each side. Going for 3 to 5 reps. So again, we have a couple of hip mobility drills to kind of really allow you to open up those hips and give you that, that use of those hips a little bit more so than what you may already have. Remember, we're thinking about efficiency in a kinematic sequence, all right, when you swing the golf club. If we are limited, if we have a physical limitation, something else in our body is going to want to make up for that. And so we want to have as much efficiency as possible in our hips, and allowing their mobility and for rotation to occur, we need to have that aspect of it, the mobility. So if you have any questions, absolutely feel free to get in touch with me. If you're following this on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. More of these are continue to come. Remember, follow me on Instagram, Facebook, all the good spots, and certainly check out any of the MOVE.TRAIN.JrGOLF services that I can offer, online training or in person. Once again, I'm Len Haggerty with MOVE.TRAIN.JrGOLF.